Hi everyone, marriage and parenting were never meant to compete, but this is sometimes how we feel. Busyness of life, there's so much to discuss. We meet because we live in the same house, but for some reason we don't have a heart-to-heart relationship. We exchange information about the kids, about how to
chores of the home,
Yeah.
and we feel more like teammates and not lovers. Honestly, we know that situation very well too, and I'm sure all of you as well. So if this is your reality, this video is for you.
And even in the chaos of parenting, God designed our marriage to be the heartbeat of our home. And the heartbeat of our home will remain when our children will leave our home.
Yes.
This is something we are reminded days after day, especially in this season, because we are approaching that time.
But let's be honest, raising little kids brings a lot of stress and chaos, also for us as a couple,
Yes.
and we seem to not be able to connect. And especially when the season or seems to be never ending or our lives doesn't slow down, what can we do in the everyday is really connect eyes to eye. And maybe you want to do this exercise. You're not maybe watching this with your husband, but just like do it later on today or tomorrow, to just look into each other's eyes a bit longer than usual. Maybe it can feel a little bit uncomfortable in the beginning, but you'll feel that spark of connection setting in.
And it doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah, the easier the better, really, so we can keep a habit.
And as you know, we teach about 10 minutes couch time, sitting on the couch 10 minutes a day, in the presence of our kids, which is already a good start to connect. But
amazing.
still, usually during this time, we don't necessarily go as deep because the kids are
Yeah.
here. So one simple tool is to ask, for example, just before going to bed or when you're reading in the bed, ask your wife, and I'm speaking as a man, I want to say hard questions, but they're not hard. They're hard to ask, but they're actually questions to bring us together. How can I change things? How do you sense my love? As a man, and I would say for me, but when I talk with my friends, it's very difficult. We don't want to ask those questions because we're scared of the answer. What Shamara always said, I think it's very important. I've learned from this, even if it's still not so easy, is even if you don't ask the question, it's still there. So better ask the question and work on it. What is also interesting, whenever I ask you, because you have learned how to answer without, for example, pressuring me or putting me down, it feels always better to ask those questions.
And I think that's like another level of deeper connection, because only then, when we really know what's in the heart of the other person, we can connect on a deeper level. And it's not just like surface, we don't really know what is going on, or we feel sometimes there's like some disruption or some frustration, but we just don't want to ask. And I think for the wife, it's very important to have grace over resentment. A lot of times when we have little kids, and depending on the roles of like who's working, but mostly a lot of the weight still falls on us women. And we tend to, in the frustration, we tend to just like be pointing fingers, I do so much more than you, and this resentment and frustration rises, and we start to keep count of who does more. And that's something for us to really learn, to be graceful in those moments and not keep score, because that's not something that will connect us. It's important maybe during this time to just bring things up that we feel are necessary, as Hugues said, in a graceful way, but not hold on to like this frustration that I'm doing so much more and I have to cook all the time or pick up the kids or take care of them when they're sick. But just make that a conversation between us two, so we know how each other feel. But marriage is not a competition, it's a covenant. So let's do a little exercise. Instead of pointing out what the other one didn't do, point out what they did and be grateful for it, because a grateful heart really opens the door to connection. And that's something we forget a lot in the busyness and the chaos of everyday life, to just stop and think about what you can be grateful for in your spouse and then say it.
A great way to connect is having prayer between us. And as a Christian parents, maybe you have your own prayer life, which we also have, and that's great. But sometimes you only pray together for special events.
Or when it's hard.
Or when it's hard.
Going through a difficult season.
And I have to say, as a man, for me, it's difficult actually to be a bit naked in prayer with my wife, even after so many years. But
because it's super intimate.
It's intimate.
Like prayer is so intimate.
But this is actually our role, our duty. I don't like to say duty because it's an honor, actually.
Responsibility.
Honor and responsibility, this is better, as a man, to lead those moments. And they can be super simple. It could be just 2 minutes or a minute before going to bed. Doesn't have to be long prayers, but it's just, bring God in the center with prayer of the relationship. Great way to stay connected.
And in Ecclesiastes 4, it's written that a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. And that's really us with God in the center. And you might be listening to this and your husband is not a believer, or he doesn't believe in prayer, so it's hard for you. But you can pray for your husband or your wife. It could be also your wife. So just take the time, like Hugues was also saying, as you're probably already doing, but just those short moments in the morning or at night, maybe your spouse is sleeping and you're just praying over them, or you're just holding their hand and you're praying in your head. But don't leave it on the side. You can integrate it in a different way, just be creative. And additional to the first point we said, we had already the couch time in the presence of the children. Then we have couch time when the children are asleep, which can be daily or maybe just as much as you can do a week. And as Hugues already said, if you're starting off, just do it once a week. But I think if you come into a rhythm, you can also add the sofa talks. And the sofa talks are once a week, where you really sometimes speak about topics that get put under the carpet or only comes out in frustration, where you ask those hard questions too, but you also ask just how are you doing? What makes you smile?
What are your dreams?
Yeah. What is the hardest part of your week?
What is God connecting? What is God speaking to you during this season?
Exactly. So mix it up with the hard conversations that need to be had, but also just the connection questions that we hardly sometimes don't talk about or even don't know. So we have friends that did that too, because they were saying they were going through a very difficult season in their marriage where there was so much frustration, and it helped them both to know there's once a week that they're going to talk about it, but the other days they're not going to talk about it. It helped especially the husband to know that he's not going to hear about it every day, and the wife that she will have one day or one moment in the week where she can just pour out her heart and they can talk about it. So that's another amazing tool that you can use in your marriage.
And those small moments of honesty, they are just layers upon layers that keep or build intimacy. Intimacy doesn't start in the bedroom. This is what we hear. It starts in the heart.
True. Yeah. And it's in those everyday connections. And maybe you listen to that and you're like, oh, wow, we have no time to include all of that in our daily rhythms because we're already stretched thin. Then think about just one. Take one point and start with that. And maybe as well, if you don't even have time for that, look at your everyday or your week and think about, is there something that I can sacrifice or put on the side? Because it can't be that we're so busy and we don't have time for each other anymore. Because our relationship is a role model for our kids And I often say that like our kids are either gonna say like, I never wanna have a marriage like my parents, or like my parents did it pretty well and they've learned something from it. So we are building their perception now. And it takes sacrifice, it takes intentionality, it takes a lot of time, but it's well worth it. And just like ask God to, like, how can you reconnect? We probably, all of you have different versions of disconnection. And for some it's way more, for some it's not as much. So like ask God really, like, how can I connect back to my spouse? Because he knows your and his or her heart the best.
And of course, a marriage without disconnection, a marriage without dissonance and problems doesn't really exist. It's really something we need to work on. But what is important is, for sure, when connection is here, we're gonna see each other in a very different light. Instead of fighting against each other, we want to come together. I think that's a really good foundation to go through life in general in a different way.
Yeah, connection brings us more unity, which doesn't mean we're not having conflict, because there's things we always have to speak about in a marriage, in parenting. But it's just like we have the heart to heart and we're on the same team and there's unity, and that makes a difference. But I just want to add to, like, it's really fighting for connection. We say that often, but a lot of times people think like some people just have it all together. And we've been married for 25 years and we had phases of frustration, like it's ebb and flowing, where we really have to be creative again. How do we connect? Do we in seasons have to take a sabbatical, maybe not do like playing football or in a band or seeing friends? Not forever, but sometimes we have to make those courageous decisions just for us to make those islands in our everyday life, because we all only have 24 hours. And sometimes we fill up our schedule too much and just squeeze in our time, but it should be reversed. We should have like our time is priority and everything else that fits can fit, and sometimes we have to rule it out for a season. So we just want to encourage you to take those courageous decisions in your season you're in. Invite Jesus to give you those the wisdom and revelation in what you need now. So we're very excited for you. We want to bless you and really encourage you. Like, nothing is impossible. We can all make it, but it takes time, sacrifice, and intentionality.
Exactly.
Okay, until then,
Bye.
bye.